Before the world was swept away in a cosmic reset, before Noah drove the very first nail into his ark, Earth was once a place overflowing with life. People ate and drank, fell in love, got married, had children, built empires, and waged wars. In other words, everything seemed as ordinary as our own world today until it wasn't resent. But who exactly were these people? We often talk about the massive stone monuments they left behind, but what about the people themselves? Flesh and blood human beings. Were they kind or cruel, eccentric or wise? The answers lie buried in Scripture. Both Genesis and the Gospel of Matthew describe the sins and corruption of the pre-flood world as being very real and very grave. Imagine a civilization not divided, but unified by extraordinary longevity. People lived for centuries. Adam reached 930 years of age, while Methuselah lived to 969, and no one thought it strange. Such lifespans meant multiple generations coexisting, countless descendants, and vast knowledge being passed down. But it also meant countless opportunities for evil to spread, for corruption to multiply. So, just how many people were on Earth before the flood? There are no ancient census records, no prehistoric social media to tally heads, but based on reasonable calculations and modern growth models, estimates range anywhere from 750 million to more than 4 billion souls. That's not a village, that's a super civilization. Perhaps they didn't build skyscrapers, but maybe there were cities, kingdoms, art, science, music, and culture. All of it erased, like data wiped from a hard drive. It sounds enormous, but remember their lifespans. When people could live for more than 9 centuries and have children at 500 years old, a population of 3 to 4 billion doesn't seem far-fetched at all. Today, many people worry if they haven't had children by the age of 35. Yet in the pre-flood world, women were still bearing children at the age of 535, and they had no idea the end was near. As Matthew writes, they continued eating, drinking, marrying, right up until the day Noah entered the ark. But what kind of world was that, really? It certainly wasn't some paradise filled with unicorns and harp music. Genesis chapter 6 paints a far darker picture: violence, corruption, moral chaos, a world rotting from within, even if it may have achieved astonishing things on the outside. We know nothing concrete about their technology, but with centuries to study the heavens, the earth, and themselves, they were hardly ignorant. The Bible tells us that Cain built a city for himself, but it also tells us humanity had fallen so low in spirit that God opened the floodgates. The portrait, painted by Scripture, is one of people very much like us, struggling to live their lives, yet led astray by corrupt leaders and evil influences. Many compare those final days before the flood with the state of our world today. Is that an exaggeration? Could God be preparing to drown humanity once again? What if everything you thought you knew about ancient history was wrong? Imagine a city so old, so mysterious, that archaeologists would give anything just to study it. It predates the Tower of Babel. It was built long before ziggurats rose in the squares of Ur. This was Eridu, the primordial city of both gods and men. If the legends are true, it vanished beneath the waters when the world was drowned in the Great Flood. Today, it lies buried under the soil of Lower Mesopotamia, in Iraq's Dikar province, near the city of Basra. According to tradition, Eridu was once the throne of the god Enki, lord of water, wisdom, magic, and secrets. The city was built of stone, set upon a massive sandstone foundation in a valley near the Arabian desert. Today that place is barren, but according to ancient cuneiform texts, Eridu once stood on the seashore. In fact, the ruins that now sit in a hot, dusty wasteland were once part of a great port on a freshwater gulf that opened into the Persian Gulf. Remember the Persian Gulf and the mysterious underwater structures we spoke of earlier? Could the pieces be coming together? Could these pre-flood sites all be connected? The oldest part of Eridu dates back roughly 8,500 years, an astonishing number by any standard. And yet, even with that great age, some archaeologists believe the deepest layers, those that might reveal a pre-flood Eridu, have either been destroyed or still lie waiting, untouched. In Sumerian mythology, Eridu was one of 5 cities built before the Great Flood, and the very first to receive kingship from heaven. Its earliest rulers were not ordinary warrior kings, but demigods who reigned for tens of thousands of years. The Sumerian king list even records that Alulim sat upon the throne for 28,000 years, a span so immense it would make Methuselah bow his head. No one dares claim there is a precise timeline, but the ancient stories overlap again and again worldwide. Floods, vanished cities, primeval gods, and transcendent knowledge echo as recurring motifs that still haunt our culture today. And Eridu stands at the very heart of it all, that rewrites history. While people still argue over whether aliens helped build the pyramids, two researchers stumbled across something so ancient, so massive, and so history-defying that it completely changed their worldview. Michael Tellinger and Johann Heine discovered a lost city in the barren lands of southern Africa, specifically in Mozambique, and it has the potential to rewrite everything scientists thought they knew about civilization, all while making the Great Pyramid of Giza look like a modern construction kit. Let's compare. The Great Pyramid of Giza is about 5,000 years old. The colossal stone temples of Malta are about 5,500 years old. And the ancient city they found? Roughly 200,000 years old. Michael and Johann uncovered a sprawling metropolis filled with concentric stone circles, road systems, farmlands, and areas located near ancient gold mines. It seems someone built a settlement here, began cultivating crops, and mined for gold. As it turns out, hundreds of thousands of years ago, gold was already the king of wealth. But the biggest question is, who built it? Scientists have no answer. Michael Tellinger suggests this may have been an ancestral civilization that passed down its religious symbols and mythology to the Egyptians thousands of years later. On one wall, they even found the carving of the Ankh, the ancient Egyptian symbol of life. And yet, this discovery has made little noise in the academic world. Michael recounts how many archaeologists privately called him and admitted, "This is truly monumental." But in public, they remained silent, because if this is real, then every neat timeline of human history we've trusted would be as reliable as a bargain store compass in the middle of a magnetic storm. If that's the case, then human history would have to be rewritten from the ground up. Have you ever stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon and felt as if you were staring into eternity? Now imagine a structure that carries the same sensation, a stone fortress keeping silent watch over the abyss, as though waiting for something or someone to return. That is the Desert View Watchtower. And believe it or not, this place is far more than just a cleverly decorated gift shop. At first glance, yes, it might look like a quirky 20th century visitor center, designed by architect Mary Coulter and completed in 1932, adorned with the stunning Hopi murals of artist Fred Cabotty, a perfect stop to take a breath, admire the view, and maybe buy a souvenir. But to dismiss it as nothing more than a shop would be like calling the Grand Canyon just a big hole in the ground. Such a view misses the larger story entirely. This tower isn't simply a polite homage to ancient Puebloan architecture. It's a monolithic enigma built with baffling precision, standing on a land steeped in legend, leaving many to quietly wonder, could this be a deliberate recreation of something far older? Something long lost, perhaps a true megalith? In terms of scale, the tower rises more than 21 meters high, utterly dwarfing the ancestral Puebloan structures. It's said to echo like an NBA player towering over a hobbit fair. Coulter claimed she was inspired by the ancient watchtowers of places like Hovenweep. Yet those towers were small, practical. This one, however, this was a statement. It seems Coulter understood she was tapping into something greater than an architectural sketch. She didn't just draw a few lines. She built full-scale models, meticulously studied ancient ruins, and spent 6 months immersing herself in indigenous architecture before placing the first stone. Most intriguingly, she erected a wooden scaffold equal in height to the tower itself, just to test the sightlines as if aligning some cosmic angle or vantage point, much like the ancients once did with pyramids, temples, and stone circles. Inside, the walls are covered in carvings and painted symbols, including copies of ancient markings from New Mexico that have since been lost forever. Many designs remain mysterious, their origins erased by time, preserved only because they were recreated here. Strange black mirrors are hidden within the interior, reflecting the canyon's landscape into abstract, dreamlike forms, all intentional, all designed by Coulter herself. From this comes a quiet theory whispered in obscure writings and local stories, that the Desert View Watchtower may actually be a coded monument, one influenced by megalithic building traditions far older than the Puebloans, older even than recorded history itself. A shadow of civilizations long gone, built here before the earth shook and the seas rose. Could this seemingly ordinary souvenir stop be a replica of a pre-flood structure? One echoed in global myths from Atlantis to Aslan, from the Hopi tale of Sipapu to the Sumerian king list. Is the Desert View Watchtower, in fact, a monument to a distant memory, an echo of a civilization humanity has forgotten? If America has its legends of the moon-eyed people, then Russia holds its own tale of a forgotten mountain race. Deep in the frozen silence of the northern wilderness lie sleeping giants. Whether you believe in fairy tales or not, strange things are happening in Russia. Enormous stone blocks keep turning up in the mountains. Some look as though they've been stacked like a colossal failed game of Jenga. Others are polished, smooth, cut with such precision that one could almost believe they were shaped by interplanetary architects wielding laser tools. But this isn't just about random rocks. This is a mystery so chilling it could rewrite history, or at the very least, make you question everything your teachers ever told you in school. Let's begin with Mount Vadavara. Rising in the wilderness of Karelia, this mountain is considered sacred by the Sami people, the indigenous culture of Northern Europe. And honestly, who could blame them? The landscape looks as though nature herself lost her temper and hurled massive stones like a child scattering toys. Sure, some of the rocks might have split during earthquakes. That sounds perfectly reasonable. But what about the ones aligned at flawless right angles, or balanced so perfectly it seems intentional? Some even show sharp cut marks, not the rough chips of stone tools, but laser-like precision. Either Mother Nature is hiding a Makita saw beneath the moss, or someone with superior technology was here long ago. But who? In 2014, explorer and researcher Georgy Sidorov trekked deep into the Siberian mountains where phone signals vanish and bears decide whether you're prey or guest. Near Mount Shoria, he discovered gigantic granite blocks, some weighing as much as 4,000 tons. They had been cut, stacked, and arranged with such sophistication that they could only be the work of human hands. Sidorov's photographs were the first glimpse the public ever had of them. And yet, mainstream archaeology still refuses to admit that Russia may once have hosted a pre-flood civilization. But if not, then how were such colossal stones cut and placed? Traveling further east, we reach Mount Piton, a sacred peak in Russia's far east. A name that sounds as though dragons should guard it. Instead, what you find are rectangular and cubic stone blocks, with dozens of polished faces and razor-sharp cuts eerily similar to the techniques seen at Mount Shoria. Two sites, at opposite ends of Russia, yet marked by the same inexplicable craftsmanship. And yet, Russia's massive stones remain largely unstudied. No major excavations, no documentaries on Netflix, not even a curious college student with a shovel. Meanwhile, billionaires launch rockets into space like it's some cosmic game of darts. In a sun-scorched corner of southern Spain, where olive trees yield oil as pure as gold, one man may have accomplished what generations of archaeologists, historians, and wannabe Indiana Joneses only dreamed of. His name is Manuel Cuevas, a 52-year-old entrepreneur and possibly the man who uncovered an ancient city buried beneath layers of catastrophic flood sediment in Cadiz. And no, he didn't find it with a shovel and a camel. He hunted it down the modern way using satellite imagery, intuition, and an almost unhealthy obsession with lost civilizations. Cuevas dropped a historic mic by submitting his report directly to Spain's Ministry of Culture. In it, he claimed a city may be lying hidden beneath the pines of Pinar de la Algaida, a sprawling urban park of more than 1,000 hectares. Beneath its wetlands, he believes, lie structures the size of football stadiums, streets, harbors, and foundations as deep as your worst midlife crisis. All of it entombed in ancient flood mud, making this not just a city, but the victim of a plumbing disaster of biblical proportions. Now, what else do we know that was swallowed by mud and wrapped in legend? Atlantis, Plato's fabled land of philosophers, warriors, and people too clever for their own good. Cuevas's mysterious city lies right next to Doñana National Park, the very place where German archaeologist Adolf Schulten once placed the lost Tartessos civilization, and where Professor Richard Freund of the History Channel argued Atlantis itself could be hiding. Coincidence? Hardly. Cuevas may have stumbled upon the ruins of Atlantis itself, or at least what others once called Tartessos. Tartessos was the ancient civilization that the Greeks hailed as the first true Western culture. They had their own language, their own script, and enough copper wealth to make King Midas jealous. Somewhere between Huelva, Seville, and Cadiz, Tartessos thrived. They traded with the Phoenicians, clashed with Carthage, and then vanished from history. Cuevas believes he has found their ghost town, a Tartessian necropolis buried under centuries of mud, floods, and silence. Many scholars, and to be clear, a great many, have long speculated that Tartessos was Atlantis. In other words, the destruction of Tartessos may have inspired the legend of Atlantis centuries later. If Tartessos is found, then Atlantis may be found as well. But is any of this true? Surprisingly, it just might be. Cuevas isn't out there in a tinfoil hat. He submitted his findings, along with processed satellite imagery, showing rectangular shadows and geometric patterns too precise to be natural. Now, Cuevas is calling for resistivity tomography scans, basically ultrasound for the Earth, to see what lies below the surface. Early signs suggest there could indeed be a buried city here. But whether it's Tartessos, Atlantis, or something else entirely, only time will tell. Few ancient civilizations are more mysterious than the sea peoples of the Bronze Age. They appeared during one of the most chaotic chapters in history. Egyptian pharaohs recorded their invasions. When the sea peoples surged into the Mediterranean from out of nowhere, societies collapsed like dominoes. Entire languages vanished, whole cultures disappeared as if they had never existed. And then, when the destruction and chaos ended, the sea peoples themselves vanished as well. No one knows where they came from, nor where they went. Ancient Egyptian texts, dating to the 13th century BCE, mention them repeatedly as marauding pirates attacking cities and civilizations all along the Mediterranean coast. Their invasions struck across a wide area, hitting multiple regions at once. They terrorized the Hittites, the Levant, and even Egypt itself. Scholars believe the waves of violence unleashed by the Sea Peoples directly caused the collapse of the Bronze Age. One of the most famous battles was between them and Pharaoh Ramses, the second Ramses the Great, who ruled Egypt from 1279 to 1213 BCE. His victory over this enigmatic force was carved in stone across Egyptian monuments. According to the records, Ramses II and his son, Prince Merneptah, fought against the Sea Peoples. But aside from brief descriptions of the conflict, almost nothing else is known. The Egyptians only wrote that they came from the north, arriving by sea, and listed lands with names like Luka, Ekwesh, Shurdan, and Teresh, names that appear nowhere else in history. There are many theories about their identity, but none proven. Some suggest they came from the Aegean, perhaps a lost Greek city-state. Others argue they were related to the Philistines, the Etruscans, or the Minoans. Still others believe they were a completely unknown people, never otherwise recorded. The Sea Peoples disappeared as mysteriously as they arrived. After Pharaoh Ramses III defeated them in 1178 BCE, all records of them cease. Some speculate they were absorbed into other societies, but for now, all of it remains pure conjecture. High on a barren peak in southeastern Turkey, where the thin air makes men dizzy, a mystery sits under the open sky. Mount Nemrut is at once an ancient temple, a cosmic code carved into stone, and perhaps the last remnant of a world washed away by the Great Flood, a deluge so great that even Noah might have said, "I'm going to need a bigger boat." In 62 BCE, King Antiochus, the first of Commagene, chose this desolate, windswept mountain to construct one of the strangest funerary complexes in the world. Instead of burying his body underground, he raised a tumulus 50 meters high right at the summit, surrounded by a terrace 145 meters across. Around it stood colossal statues, Antiochus himself, 2 lions, 2 eagles, and a divine alliance, including Zeus, Heracles, Oromestes, Mithras, Ares, Helios, and Hermes. Originally, the statues sat enthroned in majesty. Today, their heads lie scattered across the slopes, decapitated. Archaeologists believe they were toppled as an act of religious defacement. But what was the true purpose of this vast monument? Antiochus didn't just build a tomb, he created an entire religious cult infused with astrology, Zoroastrian influence, and monthly festivals designed to ensure his place among the gods. He even aligned his reformed calendar with the star Sirius, showing the imprint of Egyptian and Hermetic knowledge. Some theories suggest that the astronomical details and scale of the site hint at pre-flood origins, that Nemrut may have been a reconstruction of a far older advanced civilization. The complex includes ceremonial pathways, hidden passages, and ritual terraces arranged like a star map. And yet, the deeper mystery remains unsolved. After Antiochus's death, Mount Nemrut was forgotten for centuries until German archaeologists rediscovered it in 1883. Was this simply the project of an ambitious king, or was it a mountain temple built when much of the world lay beneath the sea? Beneath the turquoise waters of the Persian Gulf, under thousands of years of silt, salt, and silence, may lie the oldest sunken city in human history. Long before oil rigs rose along its shores, this drowned seabed may once have been a lush land of rivers, freshwater springs, fertile soil, and a civilization entirely erased from memory. Not Atlantis, but a Persian Gulf Eden. According to new research by archaeologist Geoffrey Rose of the University of Birmingham, the Gulf Oasis may have been one of humanity's first great settlements after leaving Africa some 75,000 years ago. Rose and his team believe the region was once a sprawling floodplain nearly the size of England, a green paradise of streams, rivers, and freshwater springs, an untouched Eden free of war and famine. This land endured for tens of thousands of years until about 8,000 years ago, when rising seas swallowed it whole. It sounds like myth, but the archaeological evidence is mounting. At Jebel Faya 1, scientists uncovered 3 Paleolithic settlements dating back as far as 125,000 years, proving humans had been in the region long before. The great question is this: was this an advanced civilization destroyed by a flood, or merely a primitive community taking its first steps toward culture? It's hard to know, for everything now lies beneath the sea. More than 60 archaeological sites sprang up along the Gulf right after the deluge 7,000 years ago, suggesting a mass migration followed by the founding of new cities along the coast. These later cities boasted stone houses, pottery, trade networks, domesticated animals, and possibly even the world's first seafaring vessels. Taken together, the evidence makes the theory of a global flood far more convincing. The only problem is, the Persian Gulf remains underwater. To prove it, scientists would need to excavate beneath the waves, a mission demanding immense time and money. Around 10,000 years ago, when the last ice age collapsed, the glaciers melted, like giant gods weeping into the sea. The oceans rose hundreds of feet, swallowing coasts and kingdoms. This is scientific fact, and most scholars agree that whether divine or not, this flood reshaped the world and civilization with it. One of the hardest hit regions was India. Among those who have pursued this line of research, one name stands out: Graham Hancock. Armed with scuba tanks and sonar gear, he has chased the traces of drowned cities from India to Cuba, following the echoes of a seafaring civilization that existed before the waters rose. In the ancient Vedic texts, the Sarasvati River is described as the lifeblood of early India. For centuries, scholars assumed it was just a poetic metaphor, but satellite imagery has confirmed its existence, and everything changed. Sarasvati once flowed from the Himalayas into the Arabian Sea, larger even than the mighty Indus. Along its banks, archaeologists have uncovered the ruins of the Harappan civilization, the largest urban society of its time, and far older than anyone had guessed. The Vedas themselves preserve astronomical data, philosophical systems, and encrypted myths echoing from a world before the Ice Age. Most striking of all, the Vedas also contain a flood story, much like the Bible's, in India's version. Manu survived with the help of a divine fish and rebuilt civilization afterward, an almost exact parallel to Noah. Off the coasts of Kutch and Cambay, archaeologists have found submerged structures, cities dating back to around 7000 BCE, older than any officially recognized urban site. Coincidence? Or are these the final pieces proving that an advanced civilization once existed, only to be swept away? India did not merely survive the flood it remembered. Through the Vedas, the Puranas, the Agamas, and the Tamil Sangam literature, a spiritual heritage was passed down from before the Ice Age, and it remains alive to this day. Who would have guessed that continents could stack atop one another like layers of chocolate cake? Atlantis. Step aside, the Mediterranean holds a secret, even older, and this one isn't legend, it's science. There was once a continent that broke away from North Africa about 240 million years ago, only to be swallowed by Europe. It is called Greater Adria, and for the first time since the dinosaurs vanished, it has returned to the map at least as a geological model. Greater Adria was once the size of Greenland, drifting silently through prehistory. Around 100 million years ago, it began colliding slowly with southern Europe. Slowly, meaning about 1 inch per year. To a human lifespan, that sounds trivial, but over thousands of years, it became a titanic collision. The impact shattered Earth's crust like glass. Most of the continent did not survive. It was dragged down into the mantle, buried nearly 1,600 kilometers deep, where even today, seismic waves still detect its corpse like a ghostly heartbeat beneath the planet's skin. And yet, not all of it vanished. The lighter rocks were scraped off, like frosting from a geological cake, then crumpled and folded into mountain ranges we now call the Apennines, parts of the Alps, and ranges across the Balkans, Greece, and Turkey. Europe's majestic peaks were literally stitched together from the remains of a lost world, some lying 1,600 kilometers below Europe, others soaring several thousand meters high in the Alps. This discovery was anything but easy. It was the product of more than a decade of global collaboration involving 30 countries and advanced computer modeling to reconstruct the destroyed landmass. The payoff was extraordinary. For the first time in history, humanity has a map of a land older than the dinosaurs. Was it once home to reptilian civilizations, ancient humans, or hyper-intelligent lemurs? No one knows for sure, but don't rule it out. You never know. This revelation shows just how violently Earth can change one moment on the surface, the next buried thousands of kilometers beneath the sea, and it leads to a strange artifact, so bizarre it's either a hoax or evidence of humanity dating back to the dawn of forests themselves. On a sweltering afternoon in 1936, in Texas, Max Hahn and his wife Emma were strolling near the town of London when they stumbled upon something bizarre. It was a rock, but inside jutted a piece of wood, like a popsicle stick poking out of a geological meatball. Max did what any curious Texan would do. He took it home and smashed it open with a hammer. Inside that stone was a hammer. Not an ordinary one, but a hammer trapped inside rock formed nearly 400 million years ago, older than the dinosaurs, older than trees, older than the modern continents themselves. This artifact, now known as the London Hammer, measures about 6 inches long, forged of more than 96% pure iron, and to this day still gleams as brightly as your grandmother's silverware before Thanksgiving dinner. No rust, no decay, just waiting. as if for Atlantis to return or Marvel to release another sequel. The hammer is classified as an out-of-place artifact, something that doesn't fit into the official historical timeline, like when your 6th grade teacher insisted prehistoric people were primitive, but you find evidence they were working iron and mastering metallurgy. A little-known detail. Part of the hammer's wooden handle has already begun to turn into coal, a process that usually takes millions of years. Meaning, it's been underground long enough to undergo true petrification. In 1983, creationist Carl Baugh purchased the hammer and declared it proof of the pre-flood world, an age when humans were taller, the air richer in oxygen, and dinosaurs possibly wore neckties. He argued the iron's purity proved pre-flood humanity was not only bigger, but more advanced at metalworking than we are today. Today, the hammer rests inside Baugh's Creation Evidence Museum, where visitors can ponder humanity's biggest questions and even buy replicas as souvenirs if you'd like to start your own archaeological controversy at home. As for the truth, some believe it's simply a 19th century tool that became encased in stone over time. Others see it as proof of an advanced pre-flood civilization. Which side are you on? Beneath the burning sands of the Giza Plateau, where the sun scorches the desert like a tax collector and tourists snap photos with silent stone lions, something massive lies quietly underground. It could be an entire city abandoned by a pre-flood civilization. On March 15, 2025, Italian researchers Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi announced a shocking discovery. Using synthetic aperture radar tomography, they looked beneath the pyramids. Their target, the Pyramid of Khafre, better known as the Great Pyramid, what they found was astonishing. Hidden under the sands, the scans revealed an underground labyrinth that could rewrite history. The labyrinth appeared to contain 5 multi-tiered geometric structures, 8 cylindrical shafts encircled by mysterious spirals, and even deeper, enormous cubic chambers. This discovery, though hotly debated, has been confirmed and reported by major news outlets. You can even watch their press conference and read the published research. But what does it mean? The traditional explanation is that pyramids are tombs' final resting places for pharaohs who sought eternal glory, and in that sense, they succeeded. Yet now, theories once dismissed as late-night History Channel fodder are stepping back into the spotlight. Nikola Tesla once speculated the pyramids were not just tombs but energy devices, harnessing Earth's natural vibrations. Engineer Christopher Dunn went further in his book, The Giza Power Plant, proposing the Great Pyramid was in fact a massive seismic energy converter. Thanks to Malanga and Biondi's radar scans, those theories now have sharp digital models to back them up. Some believe the pyramids were built atop a much older Egyptian foundation, a civilization drowned in the biblical flood, when the Nile rose and erased history to start anew. Others invoke aliens, Atlanteans, or the ancient Anunnaki gods. Not everyone agrees. Dr. Sarah Schrader, an archaeologist at Leiden University, urges caution. Her team uncovered human bones, showing signs of grueling labor. To her, the pyramids were tombs, yes, but also living quarters for the workers. Those underground structures, she argues, may simply be housing for pyramid builders, not the handiwork of extraterrestrials or forgotten empires. So, will they excavate? The answer is complicated. The Khafre project team is eager, but Egyptian authorities remain cautious, understandably wary of theories that challenge the official narrative of the pyramids. Protecting heritage is one thing. Admitting your national icon might be a prehistoric power station designed by ancient engineers is quite another. For now, the colossal chambers remain sealed beneath centuries of stone and sand, like pharaohs wrapped in their linen shrouds. Radar has proven something is down there, but from scans to spades is a long journey. No ancient brick or strange blueprint has yet surfaced. Still, imagine it a perfectly preserved city of a civilization beyond comprehension, lying silently beneath the familiar shadow of the pyramids. And ask yourself, how many secrets is history still keeping from us? It's not every morning you sip your coffee and stumble upon an underwater city that could rewrite prehistory, but that's exactly what happened when 2 MIT doctoral students, alongside a team of scientists, engineers, and a National Geographic film crew, found themselves more than 300 feet beneath the Black Sea. Believe it or not, they may have uncovered a genuine pre-flood settlement. Even Noah would have clutched the sides of his ark. Brendan Foley, a marine archaeologist and PhD candidate in MIT's History of Technology program, could hardly contain his excitement when he texted his professor from the research vessel. He reported that they had found unmistakably artificial structures lying beneath what was once a freshwater lake. If true, our entire understanding of human history could change overnight. The discovery came 12 miles off the coast of Turkey, during a National Geographic expedition led by none other than Dr. Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic. Once you've located the most famous shipwreck in history, It seems archaeology at sea can become an addiction. What makes the Black Sea unique is that it wasn't always a sea. Around 7,000 years ago, it was a freshwater lake. Then, suddenly, the Mediterranean poured in, creating a deluge so massive that geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman believe it could be the source of countless flood legends across the ancient world, including the Book of Genesis. Ryan and Pittman argued for a local flood that the Black Sea event was big enough to spark myths throughout the Old World. But there's a flaw. If it was only local, why do Native American legends also describe a great flood? Why do the Aztecs, who never heard of the Black Sea, tell a story that sounds the same? It doesn't make sense unless the flood was global. At the bottom of the Black Sea, researchers have found clusters of stone blocks, tools, and structures that cannot be natural. Foley insists the artifacts are too closely grouped to be random. Humans placed them there before the waters came. Today, they lie more than 300 feet deep. The discovery is still under analysis. Scientists have much work ahead to determine who built them, how old they are, and what purpose they served. They say, dead men tell no tales, but off the murky coast of Bulgaria, a graveyard of ships is telling a story that could shake both history and the Bible. In 2016, a team of British and Bulgarian scientists, led by Professor John Adams of the University of Southampton and the Bulgarian Center for Underwater Archaeology, used the research vessel Stril Explorer to survey nearly 2,000 meters down. What they found was staggering. More than 60 ancient shipwrecks spread across an area of 700 square miles, including a Greek trading vessel from 400 BCE. Preserved so perfectly, it looked like it had sunk just last week. The reason? The Black Sea has almost no oxygen at those depths. Wood doesn't rot, metal doesn't rust. Some newspapers quickly linked the discovery to the Great Flood, suggesting the ships could be far older than assumed. Back in 2000, geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman proposed that the Black Sea had once been a freshwater lake until the Mediterranean burst in after the Ice Age, unleashing a flood 200 times more powerful than Niagara Falls and drowning an area the size of Ireland. But Dr. Dragomira Georgieva, part of the Black Sea Map project, argued the data shows a slow rise in water levels, not a catastrophic water park swallowing civilization in a week. Still, these ships, whether once part of merchant fleets or naval armadas, stand as silent witnesses of a world long gone. In the age of corruption and violence that marked the pre-flood era, is it so hard to imagine that ancient civilizations fought their wars at sea? A land swallowed by time, a primordial southern supercontinent said to have been devoured by the Indian Ocean sometime between 50,000 BCE and 15,000 BCE. While most of humanity was still struggling in dark caves, the people of Kumari Kandam were building astonishing architecture, inventing algebra, debating teleportation, and casually founding the very first human civilization. The only problem? Hardly anyone has ever heard of Kumari Kandam, and there is little evidence it ever existed. According to legend, Kumari Kandam was the Tamil Atlantis, a massive continent south of today's India, now lost beneath the waves. Most historians, scientists, and archaeologists dismiss it as myth, and yet, ancient Tamil literature and a handful of puzzling archaeological clues suggest otherwise. Perhaps Kumari Kandam was not just a bedtime story, but a real, radiant, and magnificent land. In ancient times, Kumari Kandam stretched north to south from modern Tamil Nadu to Sri Lanka, and westward as far as Syria. Its cities flourished, its trade routes bustled, and its social systems were more progressive than some modern universities' gender studies departments. Women ruled. Education was for everyone. Men could be chefs or homemakers, and no one batted an eye. Equality was the norm. But then, as with all epics, tragedy struck. Around 15,000 BCE, the sea began to claim the land. Villagers reported floods and violent storms, and the empire faced a choice: evacuate or be swallowed whole. So what did they do? They played the role of Noah Tamil style. Emperor Pratin organized a massive exodus, loading sacred texts, treasures, and citizens onto great ships, departing as the continent slowly drowned. Some ships reached Kanyakumari, Chennai, or further still. Others sailed north to India, some drifted as far as Syria, and many never arrived at all. And that, dear friends, is how Kumari Kandam disappeared. Don't believe it? Look to the old texts. Numerous Tamil and Sanskrit sources speak of a great flood that erased an entire civilization. The poet Nakiyar, writing in the 1st century CE, described a tidal wave swallowing 2 ancient Tamil cities. Some believe the Tamil language itself originated from the survivors of Kumari Kandam, which explains why it endures in Sri Lanka and India to this day. Do you believe in a drowned supercontinent? Could Kumari Kandam have been the home of the most advanced pre-flood civilization? Or should that title go to the Maya? We'll explore further in the next chapter. Hidden in the silent red cliffs near Lake Titicaca, where the wind whispers riddles and llamas chew grass as if quietly judging you, there lies a doorway that leads to nothing. But nothing doesn't necessarily mean you can't step through. This door has no hinges, no welcome mat, no Airbnb listing. It's a T-shaped alcove carved flawlessly into a mountainside in Peru, as if someone started building a temple, hit pause, and never returned. Archaeologists call it Aramumuru. Everyone else calls it the Gate of the Gods. It's a stone structure about 23 feet high and nearly as wide, baffling scientists and fueling conspiracy forums ever since 1996. That's when local guide Jose Luis Delgado Mamani stumbled upon it while hiking. Lucky, right? Maybe not. Jose claimed he found it only after dreaming about it repeatedly in vivid detail. Was he guided there by some mysterious force? We'd love to say yes, but the truth is, no one knows. Outside of indigenous legend, nothing is truly known about Aramumuru. According to Aymara tradition, it was once a portal for shamans to travel to other realms, whether heavenly planes, spirit worlds, or perhaps some bizarre dimension where your worst enemies are your best friends. The Aymara feared it, calling it the Devil's Gate, warning that if you entered uninvited, your soul could be trapped forever, and losing your soul is never on anyone's bucket list. Another legend speaks of an Inca priest named Aramumuru. Don't ask which came first, the name or the man. About 5 centuries ago, the story goes, Aramumuru stood here while fleeing Spanish soldiers. He activated the portal with a sacred golden disc from the Coricancha temple in Cusco. The doorway opened, he stepped through, and was never seen again. He took the key with him so no one else could follow. To this day, a shallow circular depression remains in the rock, said to be where he placed the disc, too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Was this alien teleportation tech? What is certain is that the portal was carved by the mysterious Tiwanaku culture, sometime between 200 BCE and 1000 CE, a broad time frame. Thank you very much, scholars. Independent archaeologist Dr. Muhammad Firoz Khan calls Aramumuru an enigma, believing it was created by pre-Inca stonemasons with astonishing skill. Naturally, ancient alien theorists like David Childress and Giorgio Tsoukalos argue it could be a high-tech gateway activated by a cosmic key. So, who's right? Or the better question, if someone handed you the key, would you dare to step through and see what lies on the other side? Rapa Iti is a small Polynesian island, its name meaning Little Rapa, to distinguish it from its larger neighbor, Rapa Nui. It's tiny, with only about 500 residents as of 2017, yet it's entirely mountainous, its tallest peak rising more than 2,000 feet. In truth, Rapa Iti is the summit of a long-drowned volcano, hopefully one that remains asleep for centuries to come. The Polynesians settled Rapa Iti in the 12th century. Europeans arrived in 1791, bringing alcohol and disease. By 1830, more than 75% of the indigenous population was dead. Soon after, Peruvian slave traders raided the island, taking captives into bondage and spreading smallpox. By 1866, only about 100 islanders remained. Over a century later, that number had barely climbed back to around 500. The island's most striking historical feature is Marango Uta, a fortress built atop the mountain, the oldest defensive structure created by locals before Europeans arrived. In fact, there are 14 other hilltop forts across the island, constructed to guard against surprise raids. For in Polynesian tradition, island-hopping invasions were common, and the people of Rapa Iti wisely built high strongholds to protect themselves. The road to Atlantis has been found beneath the sea. Just 20 feet below the surface, off the coast of the Bahamas, lies a 450-meter-long stone path. At first glance, it looks like an artificial roadway laid by human hands. Geologists insist it's natural. They dismiss the stone road theory, claiming it's simply a result of natural processes. According to them, the road is made of large beach rock slabs, each about 13 feet long, but the slabs look as though they've been cut and shaped perfectly, fitted together like paving stones. Scientists argue the symmetry is nothing more than wave erosion. And yet, the road runs parallel to 2 smaller tracks, branching off at the end as though leading somewhere. Have you ever been to the Bahamas and seen it yourself? Every detail of the Bimini Road suggests human craftsmanship. Many believe it is evidence of the lost civilization of Atlantis, a paved causeway leading to ruins not yet uncovered. Since its discovery in 1968, the theory has been repeatedly dismissed by mainstream science. It was first identified by marine archaeologist Joseph Manson Valentine and his colleagues, who were also the first to suggest it might belong to Atlantis. Unfortunately, no other part of the fabled city has ever been found. Radiocarbon dating has also poured cold water on the theory. In 1978, the University of Miami tested the stones and confirmed they were only about 2,000 years old, while Atlantis is said to have sunk 12,000 years ago. So far, no scientific evidence proves Atlantis lies off the Bahamas, but science hasn't convinced everyone either. Maybe it's not Atlantis, but could it be the road to another lost city entirely? What if Peru's oldest and most impressive civilization wasn't the Inca? What if true power had existed thousands of years earlier, building pyramids as ancient as Egypt's, only to vanish so completely that no one noticed for nearly 5 millennia? Meet Caral. Long before the Inca raised Machu Picchu, Caral ruled Peru. They were building massive pyramids while most of the world was still figuring out how to domesticate goats. In fact, Caral began its pyramid age almost simultaneously with Egypt, as though some cosmic force whispered to both, "Build great triangles. They are the ultimate design." Located in the Supe Valley, Caral predates all the familiar empires and surpasses them. This was no shabby stone village. The capital of Caral, the center of its civilization, boasted 6 pyramids, sunken plazas, instruments, and even a circular amphitheater, all built around 2600 BCE. Caral is as old as Egypt's pyramids, yet no mummies were found. The strangest part? Nobody paid attention to it for nearly 5,000 years. The largest pyramid, the Pyramid de Mayor, covers an area equal to 4 football fields and rises nearly 100 feet. Built entirely of stone, a technical marvel unmatched at the time. The city sprawled across 150 acres, with grand staircases, residential zones, and plazas large enough to host your family, their friends, and their friends' friends. But in the early 20th century, archaeologists refused to believe it. They thought, no way could a primitive South American society have designed this, because it didn't fit their story of human origins. European scholars dismissed Caral until 1994, when Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady stepped in and declared, "Hold on, this is one of the oldest cities in the Americas. Many on the grounds Potter. It's command and state education. To mark in live." Her excavations revealed pyramids, a circular amphitheater for communal rituals, or open mic nights, organized housing districts, and dozens of flutes made from pelican bones. Clearly, the Caral people loved their music. Most importantly, Caral used the quipu system, recording information through strings and knots. Remember, 500 years later, the Inca still had no written script. Instead, they used quipu, a code so complex modern science still hasn't cracked it, and Caral was already using it nearly 5,000 years earlier. So where did this communication system come from? Was it older than Caral itself? Who taught them? Ultimately, Caral declined after about a millennium of glory. Dr. Thomas Pozorski suggests it was likely a mix of internal unrest, political struggles, food shortages, and perhaps a few overly ambitious pyramid-building projects. In the Zagros Mountains, where the wind howls like an ancient hymn, archaeologists have uncovered something history had hidden for nearly 4,000 years. In a groundbreaking announcement, a forgotten city of mountain dwellers emerged. It was carved into the stone heart of the mountains, straddling modern-day Iraq and Iran, built by an ancient people. This was no cluster of makeshift huts, clinging to a hillside. Far from it. This was a thriving, bustling urban center, strategically placed between kingdoms, trading with great empires, and etching its name into history with its own language, laws, and system of writing. This was an independent mountain civilization, and its very name has been erased for 4 millennia. The site is known as Cunara, but the name of the people who once lived here has been lost. From 2012 to 2018, a French archaeological team unearthed stone foundations, cuneiform tablets, obsidian-tipped arrows, pottery, and the bones of both livestock and wild predators. The cuneiform tablets reveal that the city's scribes were fluent in both Sumerian and Akkadian, the languages of their powerful neighbors. Akkad, after all, was the world's first superpower. If Akkad was a mighty kangaroo, then this civilization was the small joey nestled in its pouch. One surprising discovery is that they invented an entirely new system of measurement, unlike anything seen anywhere else on Earth. The city's scribes used their own units to record trade goods, such as flour, and to this day, modern scientists still cannot fully convert them into standard measures. As for its age, the ruins date back to at least the 22nd century BC, possibly older. The artifacts paint the picture of a wealthy and complex society. Obsidian arrowheads imported from Anatolia, hundreds of miles away, lion and bear bones, perhaps from royal hunts or diplomatic gifts. In other words, these were not isolated villagers. Cunara was once a formidable society, with writing, agriculture, animal husbandry, trade networks, and astonishing architectural skill, which makes you wonder, how many more cities like Cunara still lie buried beneath those mountains? Deep in the Yucatan jungle, where the humidity is so intense that even sweat seems to sweat, and where mosquitoes swarm in formation like fighter jets, There once stood palaces that rivaled or surpassed anything Europe would build for thousands of years. Towering pyramids, astronomical observatories, endless white causeways, and cities so precisely planned that you might think aliens dropped them off with an instruction manual. And then catastrophe struck. A massive upheaval shattered the order. Yucatan descended into chaos. The sky opened, the seas rose, and the world drowned in a great flood. Tsunamis, deluge, and what researchers now call colonial-era academic amnesia erased memory itself. This is one of the most controversial theories about the Maya Empire. Imagine waking up in 2700 BC, in the middle of a bustling Maya metropolis like El Mirador. You'd think, why does this look more advanced than parts of the US right now? Perhaps because the Maya were far more sophisticated than scholars admit. According to Dr. Richard Hansen, director of the El Mirador Basin Project, the Maya weren't just early Central American settlers, they were living supercomputers packed with architectural genius. The La Danta Pyramid Complex, the largest in the Americas, is so colossal it makes Egypt's pyramids look like birthday cakes. Strangely, the oldest Maya structures are the most advanced. Normally, civilizations start small, experiment, and then scale up. Not the Maya. They arrived and said, nope, let's just build a spaceport on day one. Either they were time travelers, or they inherited a civilization with 10,000 years of technical blueprints ready to go. Some theories suggest the Maya inherited their empire from an even older, superior culture. The predecessors handed over the keys with the warning, don't mess this up, and, like all tragic epics, they did. The Maya supercities quickly crumbled into ruins, swallowed by jungle, now tourist selfie backdrops. Was the cause natural or cosmic? Yucatan wasn't just Maya homeland, it was also tsunami country. Recent geological studies reveal waves up to 50 feet tall, repeatedly crashed inland over thousands of years, enough to snap trees, demolish cities, and erase civilizations. Take Sil, for example, a Maya city once glittering with palace walls so refined Versailles would envy them. Now, it's nothing but shattered stones scattered like it went 12 rounds with Poseidon. The city was clearly bulldozed by tsunamis, and Sil may not have been the only victim. Researcher Cliff Dunning saw evidence of this 30 years ago. In 1995, during a trip to Yucatan, he discovered signs of water damage, pitted statues, eroded limestone, and collapsed buildings wrecked by ancient waves. You'd think this would be in the history books, but for some reason, academia mostly shrugs. Did you know Native American legends describe these very floods? Yet they've been brushed aside like crumbs off a table. The Zuni, Lakota, and Maya all tell stories of a great deluge turning the world into one giant water park. Geologist Harlan Bretz was among the first to speak of cataclysmic floods back in the 1920s, documenting the megafloods in the Pacific Northwest caused by the Younger Dryas impact event around 12,000 years ago. Catastrophist Randall Carlson believes the floods weren't limited to Yucatan, they were global. Sound familiar? Here's more evidence. Ever heard of the Maya's Sakbi? They were ancient superhighways paved in dazzling white stone. Some were 23 feet wide, engineered so perfectly they had no potholes. They stretched for miles, linking cities like the empire's veins. And where are most of them found today? That's right, 9 meters underwater. Satellite images from Angela Meikle of the Satellite Archaeology Research Society show causeways extending from land into the sea, like breadcrumbs leading to sunken cities yet to be discovered. The implications are staggering. If these underwater roads lead to submerged Maya cities, then we're not just talking about a culture that peaked 2,000 years ago, but one that could date back 9 to 12,000 years on par with, or even older than, the world's earliest known civilizations. So what do you think? Were the Maya the final echo of a pre-flood super empire, or were they wiped away by a cosmic strike? Share your thoughts and bonus points if you throw in a sea monster. Like the Sea Peoples, the origins of the Khazars are cloaked in mystery. Originally nomads, by the 6th century AD, they had forged an empire in what is now European Russia. From out of nowhere, they swiftly controlled vast lands stretching from Russia to Kazakhstan, most of Ukraine, and down into Crimea. The Khazar kingdom endured for centuries, serving as a crucial buffer between Christian Byzantium and the Islamic caliphates. Around the year 740, the Khazar king and his nobles converted to Judaism. Outside of Israel, Khazaria may have been the world's largest Jewish kingdom at the time. Accounts from Arab scholars, Byzantine writers, and Jewish clerics 1,300 years ago all confirm this. The most famous evidence comes from letters exchanged between King Joseph of Khazaria and Rabbi Hasdai ibn Shaprut in the 10th century. Rabbi Hasdai, an influential figure who made Spain a brief refuge for Jews, had heard rumors of a Jewish nation on Europe's frontier and reached out. King Joseph explained that he and the nobility abandoned paganism for Judaism, though the common people didn't entirely follow. The shift came through Jewish scholars who had arrived to preach. By the late 10th century, Byzantium allied with the emerging Russian states and crushed Khazaria. The capital Atil was burned, the lands devastated, and the Khazars' fate slipped into obscurity. They weren't wiped out, but scattered, many believed to have fled to Spain. Their descendants may still walk among us today. Around 900 AD, the Toltec civilization rose to dominate central Mexico. From their capital at Tula, they reigned for about 1.5 centuries before the city was destroyed and their empire vanished. The Toltecs were renowned as master sculptors and fierce warriors. Like medieval Europe spreading Christianity, the Toltecs spread their religion worship of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. Their armies were religious warrior orders, organized into units named after predators like the jaguar warriors. Their rituals included human sacrifice, men, women, young, old, as offerings to please the gods. Excavations at Tula reveal massive ceremonial bowls for bloodletting and racks of skulls displayed in the central plaza. By 1150, Tula was looted and burned. The charred palaces suggest deliberate destruction, but the perpetrators remain unknown. Some speculate rival tribes or a rising coalition, perhaps the Chichimeca, but no one can say for sure. One drone, one doorway, and one ancient tomb. This is the story of a man and a discovery that could change history. His name, rumor says, was John. That's it, no last name, no details. This man recently went viral after posting a drone video over a rocky mountain range in Turkey, where he stumbled upon a doorway carved into a cliffside. Doorway sounds too simple. It looked like an entrance, a passage into a hidden darkness, sealed for thousands of years. John retrieved his drone and decided to climb. Geared up like an over-caffeinated Indiana Jones, he scaled the cliff, lost his flashlight, fought off an eagle, and squeezed inside, emerging with ancient secrets. Except, none of that ever happened. The viral story was pure fiction. Though the photo of the strange doorway was real, it wasn't AI generated, it wasn't photoshopped, but the John and his drone saga was fabricated. The truth is, the doorway leads to a 2nd century BC rock-cut tomb carved into the cliffs of Sorum, Turkey, inscribed with the name Ezios above it. On either side, decorative niches hold faded carvings. Archaeologists have long known this site, calling it the Kapilikaya rock tomb, but the meaning of Ezios remains a mystery. Inside, the massive doorway is only a small burial chamber and no remains. Perhaps the tomb was looted long ago, or maybe no one was ever buried there. The site has stood for at least 2,000 years, but its origins remain a total enigma. Who was Ezios? Where is his body? And why build such a grand entrance, leading only to a tiny chamber perched high on a mountain? Off the coast of Japan may once have existed a civilization never officially recognized. The greatest evidence lies beneath the waves near Yonaguni Island, a massive pyramid. And not just a pyramid, but the remains of an entire complex of mysterious structures. In 1986, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake, while diving off Okinawa to observe hammerhead sharks, stumbled upon strange formations on the seafloor that looked remarkably like ancient architecture. By 1992, Japanese scientists arrived to investigate and realized they were staring at a colossal pyramid complex. These researchers also identified 10 additional structures nearby, plus 5 more off the coast of Okinawa. The main site spans roughly 880 feet by 490 feet. The structures themselves look exactly like what one would expect from a sunken city. This site, known as the Yonaguni Monument, is one of the most hotly debated archaeological mysteries on Earth, largely because mainstream science has all but ignored it. The Japanese government has made no move to seek the truth, and most orthodox archaeologists steer clear. Yet anyone who gazes at the monument's perfect symmetry finds it hard to believe nature created it by accident. So why does the clear evidence of a city here spark so much controversy? Marine geologist Masaki Kimura insists these structures were made by human hands. Some argue they are the ruins of a long-lost civilization, perhaps built by the Jomon people, prehistoric inhabitants of Japan, who lived here as far back as 12,000 BC. Kimura claims mainstream scholars resist rewriting history. The last time this area was above sea level was more than 10,000 years ago. If the Yonaguni Monument is confirmed as part of an ancient city, it could be the oldest city in the world, even older than biblical Jericho, something that would deeply unsettle certain religious groups. The reason many scientists dismiss it is that Yonaguni resembles natural formations elsewhere, such as the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. Either way, if you're lucky enough to dive here and see the Yonaguni Monument with your own eyes, you'll probably walk away with your own answer. Off the Greek island of Crete lies a drowned town called Olus. This city sank about 1,800 years ago after an earthquake reshaped the land. Before that, Olus had thrived for roughly 1,000 years and was once home to an ancient Greek civilization. Archaeological evidence shows people lived in Olus as far back as the 8th century BC. The city survived the Persian invasion of 480 BC and grew into a powerful port. Olus connected northern Crete with other Aegean islands and the wider Mediterranean world. Underwater excavations have revealed impressive remains roads, the ruins of houses, and the foundations of unknown structures. Researchers from the Department of Underwater Antiquities also discovered remnants of city walls and watchtowers that once protected the harbor. Many coins minted between 330 and 280 BC have been found, bearing the head of Zeus, likely the patron god of Olus. Little is known about the government or social structure of the city, but Olus prospered until the earthquake dragged it beneath the waves. The forgotten city of Heraklion has lain beneath the sea off Egypt's coast for 2,000 years. Founded in the 12th century BC, it was tied to ancient Greece and to Egypt's last queen, Cleopatra. Researchers believe Heraklion gradually declined over centuries before earthquakes and tsunamis sealed its fate. The ground grew unstable, liquefied, while sea levels rose. By the 2nd century BC, most of Heraklion was underwater. Some structures clung to survival, but over time all collapsed into the Mediterranean. By the 8th century AD, when the Arabs conquered Egypt, Heraklion had long belonged to Poseidon. The city once sat about 20 miles from central Alexandria, right on the shore. Today, it rests at a depth of 30 feet beneath the waters of Abu Qir Bay. Long before Alexandria existed, Heraklion was a dazzling Egyptian hub, built on a cluster of Nile Delta islands, connected by canals and harbors. It was home to grand temples, bustling marketplaces, and a wealthy trade port that poured taxes into Egypt's coffers. One of its greatest monuments was the Temple of Khonsu, son of Amun. Heracles also had a major shrine here, and by the 4th century BC, additional temples rose to honor gods like Osiris and Isis. Since underwater archaeologist Franck Gaudio discovered the city 30 years ago, scientists have tirelessly salvaged statues, artifacts, and ruins from the seabed, piecing together the story of a lost Egyptian civilization.